A lot of people have trust issues with banks and financial institutions, but some more than others. Join us as we have a look at the bizarre places that people have hidden money. Toilets. Now, you may have thought that the John was just to be used for your own private time, but as it turns out, the toilet may also serve other purposes. The toilets in Geneva, Switzerland were clogged up, and the culprit ended up being tens of thousands of dollars worth of discarded cash. The bathrooms at a branch of the UBS Bank in Geneva, along with 3 restaurants nearby, had their pipes stuffed up with 500 euro bills that had been cut up with scissors and then flushed down the toilets. Destroying all of that money isn't necessarily linked to a crime, but an ongoing investigation quickly got underway to figure out who and why the money was flushed down the toilet in the first place. In America, it's illegal to mutilate or deface United States bills, but as it turns out, if you want to cut up a bunch of 500 euro bills and flush them down the toilets in Switzerland, it's not a criminal act, though destroying large quantities is prohibited. Talk about dirty money. We're not sure how to feel about the fact that someone decided to either hide this large amount of cash inside of a toilet or that they thought that they'd get away with it without being caught. High heels. Hiding a few bucks in a sneaker is an age-old trend that's been passed down from generation to generation, but doing so in a pair of fancy high heels is a whole other department. And we're not talking about a different shoe department either. One woman was acting suspicious at the airport when the TSA took both pairs of her high heels and afterwards discovered something quite shocking. She had managed to open up the wedges of the 4 shoes and stuffed 500 euro notes rolled up into them, amounting to somewhere around $150,000. The woman also had almost 6,000 euros in cash in her handbag. So, as it turns out, she was acting suspicious for a good reason. I guess that perhaps she may have just gotten cold feet about her money laundering act. Buried in the ground. When you were a child, you probably heard some age-old tale from a relative or someone in your town that somewhere in the town there was a big load of buried cash, maybe from a mobster or a husband who had murdered his wife. This is something that's been passed on from generation to generation, and the myth may or may not eventually turn into truth. So if you're someone who's brave enough, you can venture out and search for it. This is most likely the case for one Californian couple who discovered a trove of gold coins in their backyard. There were, in fact, 8 buried canisters with 1,427 rare mint condition coins dating back to the 1800s, with an appraisal value of $11 million. Some of the coins would be kept by the couple, but some were donated to local charities, and you may even snag a few on sale on Amazon. As it turns out, Amazon.com really does sell everything, including forgotten backyard treasures. A duvet. You probably thought that a duvet was just the perfect blanket. It's nice and cool in the summertime and heavy enough to keep you warm during those long, cold winter months. But as it turns out, the duvet can also have another purpose. One man decided to hoard a bunch of secret cash inside of his duvet, and unfortunately, he had to come clean about the stash after the dog ended up shredding not only the duvet, but also the money that was hidden inside. The man had to fess up when the wife woke up to some innocent puppy dog eyes from her golden retriever, who was also surrounded by shredded scraps of duvet and cash. As it turns out, he had been secretly saving his own money, and this ended up being over $3,800 in Chinese currency, or just about $465 American. The best part is, the dog wasn't even their dog, and they were just pet sitting for a friend. So it would turn out to be one costly favor for their friends, and maybe the guy shouldn't take sleeping on big decisions like saving money quite so literal next time. The garage. Now, I guess there are a few advantages to living your life out as a recluse, but then there are some not so great parts of it as well. As it turns out, one recluse in Nevada had spent his entire life with a rather intriguing hobby that would end up being exceptionally profitable, but somehow he died with only $200 in his bank account. After the man's house would be put up for sale, officials found quite the shock when they would discover $7 million in gold bars and coins hidden away in the garage. Perhaps the strangest part of everything was that the man never left a will and had no close relatives. But after some research, officials would track down a first cousin who lived in California. Apparently, he was also not a fan of major financial institutions or people, it seems, but at least that means that there isn't a family feud on who gets his riches. The television. One man would get a surprise after authorities returned about 76 grand to him in cash, which had been discovered inside of an old television set. A recycling plant worker would find the money tucked away inside the TV after she dismantled it, and that's when she would immediately contact the police. The money turned out to be the man's lost inheritance. Fortunately for him, it was hidden away with some documents that were used to find its original owner, and when the man was finally located, he told police that he had forgotten about the cash box when he gave the television to a friend. The money had been stored away in the television set for nearly 30 years and was intended to be passed down to his family as an inheritance. This just goes to serve as a reminder that as televisions get more thin, you're probably wanting to look elsewhere to hide your cash. An airplane bathroom. Now, we've heard of hiding your hard-earned cash in your own bathroom, but the airline toilets are another thing entirely. 2 lunchboxes would be discovered inside of a Jet Airways plane, and that triggered a bomb scare, which then turned into a smuggling probe. As it turns out, the lunchboxes held a total of 12 gold bars. Smuggling is on the rise in India, and that's because India is one of the world's biggest buyers of gold, after the government raised import duties to a record 10%. That in turn would slap tons of restrictions on the things that you can bring with you. The plane normally operates between gold trading hubs in Dubai and Mumbai, which are the home to India's largest gold markets, and it was undergoing a routine cleaning when maintenance staff would find the lunchboxes. The bars discovered would be estimated to have a worth of $1.18 million, and we're sure that whoever left them behind is missing them. U.S. Customs seized 5 cases of gold over a 2-month time span with a total weight of 100 kilograms. That's a lot of cash for such a small package. In a river. Swimming in rivers can be a fun thing to do in the warm summer months, but we definitely don't recommend tossing your cash into your local river unless you enjoy watching all of your hard-earned money float away. Like Pennywise the Clown says, we all float down here, including more than $100,000 in cold cash in the Danube River in Austria. Now, there's been no link to criminal activity, and the man that spotted the treasure jumped in to grab the cash. Bystanders thought that he was just trying to commit suicide, and that's when they immediately contacted the police, who arrived just as he was grabbing the money. The question now remains on who found the money first, the police or the man, because anyone who finds cash and brings it to the police in Austria gets a claim of 5 to 10% and has the right to receive the whole amount if the rightful owner cannot be identified within a year. The man may have gotten more than he originally bargained for with just a leisurely swim. A backpack. One homeless man would get the shock of a lifetime when he opened up a backpack to find over $2,000 in cash, along with $40,000 in traveler's checks, as well as a passport at a Boston shopping mall. The man quickly alerted the authorities, who returned the bag to its rightful owner. Now, the owner didn't think a special thanks and recognition was enough for the kindness of the stranger, and that's when he began a GoFundMe campaign which raised over $120,000 for the man. This would help him turn his life around. A used desk. One rabbi from Connecticut would get the shock of a lifetime after purchasing a used desk on Craigslist for just $150. As it turns out, the desk wouldn't fit through the door of his study, so that's when he had to take it apart. And when he did, a bag containing $98,000 would fall out. The next day, the rabbi would take the money back to the owner, and the woman was, needless to say, speechless. The rabbi said that if they wouldn't have taken the desk apart and took the drawers out, they would have never found the cash to begin with. As it turns out, the money was part of the original owner's inheritance that had mysteriously disappeared. But it's also the money that she put in the drawer that had fallen into the cracks. She thought that maybe she had moved it and just never thought about it again. You know, because I tend to sit around and not think about how I lost over $98,000 in cash. The woman did end up writing a note to the family and giving back the original $150 they had spent on the desk. But the rabbi and his family were just happy to see that the money got back to its rightful owner. He also explained that it made the Jewish New Year even more meaningful to be able to do a good deed, and it was important for him to bring his children in order to teach them a lesson about doing what is right and showing integrity. The woman was just happy that the family was kind enough to be honest and call her back to return such a large sum of money. Nicolas Cage and Johnny Depp have made a living off of playing characters that search for long-lost treasure throughout the world. But have you ever wondered how much truth there is to some of their tales? You may be surprised to find out that on more than one occasion, there have been many who were slightly careless when it came to remembering where they placed their hidden riches. Join us as we have a look at some of the lost treasures from around the world.